At this time, the Austin Police Department is currently investigating a series of overdose incidents that resulted in 2 deaths early Friday morning. While the investigations are still ongoing, we're still working to confirm the exact drugs involved. Based on preliminary information, we believe the drug fentanyl may be involved in a few of these incidents. Fentanyl is a synthetic opiate similar to heroin, but much more powerful. It can be in pill, powder, patch, solid, or liquid form, and it can be extremely lethal in very small doses. As I said, investigators are currently working to confirm the drugs involved, the source of those drugs, and any connections between the victims. The community needs to be aware of this public health risk and the dangers associated with the drug fentanyl. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the EMS commander and let him talk a little bit about the incidents from yesterday morning.
Hello, as we said, well, my name is Captain Darren Noak, and that's D-A-R-R-E-N N-O-A-K with Austin Travis County EMS. As we mentioned, there were a series of incidents that occurred this morning, early this morning, in the downtown area from a period of about midnight until 7 a.m. this morning. Austin Travis County EMS responded to 7 incidents in that area. The incidents involved the response of 13 ambulances, 10 command assets. From those incidents, we transported 12 total patients, and we also obtained 2 deceased on scene pronouncements from 2 of the incidents. There were 3 incidents that kind of stand out in particular because they were multi-patient and multi-ambulance responses. The first occurred just after midnight at 7th and Sabine. From that location, we had 1 patient that was transported to the hospital and 1 patient that was that we obtained a deceased on scene pronouncement. The second occurred at 5th and Trinity. That was our largest incident. That comprised of 8 total patients. 6 of those were transported to the hospital. 1 left the scene without any further contact, and we also had another deceased on scene pronouncement from that incident as well. And then the last major or bigger incident that we had was about at 6:19 this morning. It was another multi-patient, 2 patients. One of the patients we transported, and we transported both patients from that incident. One of the patients was in cardiac arrest upon our arrival. We performed CPR, and our medics were able to obtain return of spontaneous circulation and pulses, and they were transported to the hospital. Most of these patients that we encountered were exhibiting signs and symptoms of opioid overdoses, but then again, there were some that had other signs and symptoms that were not consistent with opioid overdoses. Currently, our medical officer of the chief medical officer is providing a medical advisory to all of our local medical providers, and along with CATRAC, they are providing information regionally as well to provide information concerning the incidents that occurred this morning, and just reiterating the dangers and signs and symptoms and possible patient encounters that they might have if someone has induced this sort of substance. And with that, I think we're done, and we can open it up for questions.
Captain, can you just talk about, in terms of the people you're treating, are these individuals who are homeless? Are they people who are partying downtown?
That's very hard to say for us. You know, that's really not a question that we ask, number one. It does seem that most of the incidents that we responded to occurred in public domain. I don't believe, maybe one of the one-off calls was actually inside of an establishment or a business, but I really have no information that would point to anything like that.
So it's near a bar or a...
I'm not sure. It might have been a hotel down in the area or something like that, that somebody came in from the outside or something. But
Okay.
At this time, do you all believe that these incidents are connected or related in any way?
So from a EMS and medical perspective, as I said earlier, the majority of the patients that we encountered had similar signs and symptoms that are consistent with opioid overdoses. So that ties them in together medically. As far as anything else, that would be more of an investigative for the law enforcement, for APD to decide in any other case.
And working with a situation like this, 2 lives were lost, a lot of people were hospitalized. From an EMS perspective, what's your reaction to that?
Well, unfortunately, this is not a new thing to our area. Years back, and for quite some time, we experienced an increase in K2 incidents around the area. So these things do happen. I mean, obviously, our advice is for anyone, just stay away from the utilization of street and illegal drugs, number one. You never know what those drugs are going to contain, and it could cost you your life.
What was it like for EMS to deal with these incidents? Was it rapid fire, one after another, or was it spread out over time? And how many? I think you said how many ambulances were involved.
So a total of 13 over the 7 incidences. The one particular highest call volume call, we had 5 ambulances and 4 command elements on scene at one time. It wasn't so rapid fire. It was more of they arrived in the area, and then other patients were pointed out as the arriving units got on scene. This is something obviously we train for mass casualty. This technically didn't fall into that specific category, but it was definitely a situation where we needed additional resources, and those additional resources were brought in and handled the patients as they needed to be.
And Captain, just speaking of resources and staffing, with the upcoming events that we have, the festival, South by Southwest, do you all feel that you have enough resources and staffing to really address if a situation were to happen like this again? Do you have enough to address that?
Certainly. That's a good question in light of the festival season that's coming. If you'll recall and remember, EMS and much of our public safety agency partners treat these types of events as special events, or for us, for EMS, we establish it as basically a city within the city. We create our own EMS dispatch system. We create our own EMS response system. We set up a patient collection point, and we have dedicated ambulances and response units that are solely dedicated to the downtown area and the festival area. So we certainly are. We've had our fill of those before with the autoped that happened before. So I feel that all of the public safety agencies are very well prepared to handle anything that might come our way. Hopefully we don't have to, but we're prepared.
In terms of Narcan, has APD been using that, and how much of that have you all been using?
Yes, I think almost all the patrol officers are required now to check out the Narcan. And I can tell you, just over the last week, we've had at least 3 to 4 incidents where officers have given Narcan to people that were in the midst of overdosing and have saved their lives. We're definitely seeing a lot more overdoses, and it is a fentanyl crisis right now. I don't think it's any secret that there's a lot of fentanyl coming across the border, and it's a cheap way to make pills. We're seeing a lot of pills. We definitely look for pills that have a blue color to them. They are showing up to test positive for fentanyl. It's a substitute for heroin, and it's a lot cheaper. I pulled some stats for you. Went back to 2019, and we had about 133 overdoses in 2019. We had 162 overdoses in 2020, and last year, up until the end of November, we had 170. So we're already up to maybe 25 or 30 this year. So it's an epidemic for sure.
Are you worried that is there like a certain batch that just made its way to our area and it's still
It's possible. It's very likely that what happened last night was probably contributed to a certain batch of whatever drug was distributed. I can tell you that with South by Southwest coming up, the police response is going to be to flood the downtown area with narcotics officers, undercover officers who are going to target dealers in and around the downtown area. We see a lot of activity around 6th and Natchez, where we found a lot of this around the Arch, unfortunately. And going back and looking at stats, it looks like about 20 to 25% of our overdoses are in the people experiencing homelessness community. So this fentanyl reaches all aspects of life and all ages. We had 2 juveniles last weekend overdose on fentanyl. So it's everywhere and in every community.
And just in terms of this recent overnight incident, were those younger people, or do you have an age range of
I can't speak for the ones that survived. I think that the 2 that were deceased were probably experiencing homelessness.
All right.
I would say, as far as an age range with all the patients, I believe everyone was over the age of 18, which we would consider an adult. We weren't dealing with any pediatric or patients of that nature with last night's incidents.
So we also have Dr. Abraham.
Dr. Abraham, from the Office of the Chief Medical Officer.
Okay, correct. Those are my questions.
Thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it.